And right now on Brookland News Live on this Tuesday, August 11th, we are just 84 days away from the midterms and in the final stretch of campaigning for tonight's midterms. Well, for tonight's primaries, I should say. We'll have a look at tonight's and next Tuesdays as you see Byron Donalds speaking there live. And happening right now, this is live right now in Plymouth, Massachusetts, as the trial for Lindsay Clancy continues in now its third week. And happening now in Brookland, the heat is still here. We'll bring an updated look at your forecast coming up here in just a few moments. And just over in Memphis,
Frederick W. Smith, formerly associated with
Frederick W. Smith, that is the new name of the airport, formerly now known as Memphis International Airport. We're live across the nation on this Tuesday. Brooklyn News Live starts right now.
It's time for all the news you need and more. Brooklyn News Live starts right now.
And thank you for joining us. A lot coming up on this Tuesday, August 11th, 2026. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It is good to be with you. We've got a lot of live events happening this hour, and we are going to take you to all of them. Previewing this one right now, we're going to start you off with this story. It's happening right now just across the river. So this is actually in Memphis, the Memphis International Airport, close enough to Arkansas, I think you could say. And a lot of Arkansans use, especially across Northeast Arkansas, use this airport to travel across the nation and internationally. Well, after the death of the former founder of FedEx, Frederick Douglass, it's now being renamed after him. Let's take you live there right now and listen in.
Tennessee. This city and its people embraced our father's radical idea and became its champion. The partnership between FedEx and the Memphis International Airport is a testament to what can be built when a community and a company grow together, sharing a common vision for the future. As Terry mentioned, this renaming has been a long time coming, especially for Jack Sammons, who tried to make it happen many years ago with Reed Hedgepeth, a family friend and a former city councilman. Instead of accepting the offer at the time, my dad firmly declined it. In fact, he rebuked it harshly, as I feared he might, and I warned Jack and Reed that he might. It was a personal stance. He was a humble man who consistently avoided seeking honors or titles. He didn't want monuments built to him. Rather, his focus was on the daily mission of our team members and the profound difference FedEx was making for our city and the entire world. Whenever he was recognized for anything, he was always quick to make it clear that he was accepting said recognition only on behalf of the broader team. That was just his way. So when Jack pitched the idea all those years ago, my dad barked at him, "That's not something you do for living people, and I'm still very much alive." So I quickly seized on the opening he left us, and I said, "Okay, you heard him. When you're gone, we're naming the airport for you, Dad." He replied, "When I'm gone, you can do whatever you want." And he laughed with that great laugh of his. And so I reaffirmed that we would do just that, and we took our leave. So as Jack recently put it, that's where we are today. My father was never consumed by his legacy. In fact, in my experience, he hardly thought about it at all. He just didn't worry about it. He knew that his creations, meaning his family and his company, would be his legacy and would speak for themselves long after he was gone. He believed in letting time and community consensus shape how he would be remembered, preferring to let the city and the public decide his legacy after he was gone. And I believe the community has now spoken. Today, as we look at the new Frederick W. Smith International Airport, we see more than a name. We see a legacy and a launch pad. It's a tribute to the past and a promise for a future of global connectivity, innovation, and continued prosperity for the city we call home. And now, everyone who comes and goes from this airport will be greeted by another beautiful tribute to that shared vision. Just over the fence from our FedEx World Super Hub is a new mural nearly 1,000 feet wide on a newly paved plowed boulevard, I might add. It's a stunning piece of art, designed by our in-house Studio 73 team that celebrates our father's legacy as an aviation pioneer and showcases how FedEx and the city of Memphis truly connect the world. We are so appreciative of the partnership between the Airport Authority, the city of Memphis, and our FedEx team to bring this incredible project to life for all to enjoy. I also want to recognize and thank my sister Sam, who was the connector between FedEx and FWS Enterprises, our family office, who jointly helped fund the endeavor, as well as the local government. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the paving and the cleanup. It looks beautiful. And without Sam, this project would not have happened. So thank you, Sam. And on behalf of the entire Smith family, thank you all. It is with great honor that I accept this resolution, and we are immensely proud to be a part of the Memphis story and so excited for the future we will continue to build together in his memory.
Well, changing the name of this airport may not be quite as simple as one may think. We're talking about a brand transformation to cement the legacy of Fred Smith into the very facility he transformed. Thus, after the official announcement approving the name change, our team went to work. And change is something that we handle with care. Going through their naming process, we carefully thought about our visual identity. For years, our logo, the flying music note as it's sometimes called, has long stood as a welcoming sign for travelers coming home and adventurers starting their next journey. So we chose to refine rather than completely change our logo. You'll see the familiar curves and colors of our classic design remain at the heart of our new logo. This new logo reflects the new name proudly, while also preserving the core elements that represents our musical heritage, as well as an airport on the move and a city rising ever higher. While the look is crisper, our daily mission to serve you remains unchanged. You'll see this refined yet wonderfully familiar logo rolled out over the coming months.
Alrighty, you are continuing to watch live there, a ceremony essentially happening right now at the Memphis International Airport, or I should say Frederick W. Smith International Airport, just renamed moments ago. This is the official ceremony there as you hear officials from the Frederick W. Smith International Airport speak there in Memphis. We will continue to keep our eyes on this and bring you all updates on this story as we get them. Again, that is happening right now out of Memphis, and we are following it. And again, if we get any big updates there, we are planning to bring you guys an update on that. Give us just a second here as we are working on our next story. This one is, I'll just tell you, it's a pretty big one that we have been following these last few days. Stand by with me as I am working to get our next story ready. A little behind the scenes here. This is kind of how it works. It takes us a few moments each story to essentially transfer to the next story. This next story is, I'll tell you, it is a big one. Let's take you to it right now. The Washington Post is out with new reporting saying that President Donald Trump on his trip to Ankara, Turkey, that we covered so closely here, and the Air Force drama, the drama about which Air Force One to take. Do you take the new one that was gifted to the U.S. by Qatar, or do you take the old one here? If you remember, it was said that the president took the new one to Qatar and then the old one back due to safety concerns. That's at least what reporting had revealed. Well, now the Washington Post is out with a new article here, and we even have video showing you guys about
how
this.
President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded Air Force One in Ankara, then moved into a catering container attached to the plane, which then ferried him to a smaller aircraft that flew him to Britain. New details emerging about how President Donald Trump flew out of Turkey last month. The Washington Post reported Trump boarded
break of the hour as we continue our coverage on what is a busy Tuesday here. A lot of news coming out. And of course, that big Washington Post report. When we come back, we're going to preview some of the elections coming up this Tuesday. Plus, what Byron Donalds just said ahead of his next Tuesday's primary. When we come back, you're watching Brookland News Live. Stick with us. Welcome back. We are following even more breaking news this hour. It's 2:17 right now. I'm Jackson Mitchell, still with you here. Well, a big earthquake struck Colombia. This happening earlier this weekend, over the weekend. Take a look there. You see just the number of people searching for what is left as you take a look there. So rescue crews in Colombia, oh, now they're in a race against time to find survivors. You see there, just the number of people in that camera. This comes after a magnitude 7.4 earthquake flattened buildings across the western part of the country. Now, emergency responders, they are racing to find survivors after the quake killed more than 200 people. Now, that's according to a CNN count based on reports from officials. Now, the country's strongest earthquake this century hit the cities of Cali and Piera the hardest. Now in Piera, excuse me about the pronunciation. Now volunteers, they are combing through collapsed buildings through the night by torchlight, searching for survivors, including two girls believed trapped in a 6-story building. Now, rescuers in Cali formed human chains to clear rubble by hand, and that is what it looks like you are seeing here is a human chain where they are passing rubble back to clear some room and continue their search for what is left. Now, a crane and the canine search teams, they've been deployed to pull people from collapsed structures. Authorities say the death toll could continue climbing as crews reach more of the hardest hit areas. Now, the Colombia government, they have declared a state of national disaster and deployed soldiers to the affected region. So, wow, just some scary video to see there. Again, that is right now out of Colombia. I mean, I just couldn't imagine. You just see the number of people trying to move whatever they can out of the way to search for what is left there. Just absolutely scary as you take a look there. Alrighty, we are continuing our preview of the midterms 2026, and it's another Tuesday meeting. There are even more primaries tonight, and several states are headed to the polls. It's primary night in several states, voters deciding races that, well, they could shape how the midterms could look. Voters are heading to the polls today in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Vermont, and Connecticut. Now, in South Carolina, Republicans are choosing a new Senate nominee. That follows the death of Senator Lindsey Graham's following the death of Senator Lindsey Graham. This all happened last month, as you might remember. Now, a new Senate nominee following Senator Lindsey Graham's death must be chosen in this special election, and several Alabama House districts are also holding primaries after being postponed over a new congressional map. Now, in Connecticut, incumbent Governor Ned Lamont is facing his first primary challenge since taking office as he seeks, well, a third term. In Vermont, Democrats are choosing a nominee to take on Republican Governor Phil Scott in November. Now, polls close throughout the evening, and we're going to bring results over on a big results that happen over on our social media page. We will bring you those as they come in. So, lots of big elections to watch out here. Polls already open today. Again, those big states are Wisconsin, Minnesota, Vermont, and Connecticut. We also have in Minnesota, Senator Amy Klobuchar is heavily favored to win the Democratic nomination for governor. She's likely to replace retiring Tim Walz. Again, this is out of Minnesota, a big race there. On the Republican side, the field includes MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, State House Speaker Lisa DeMuth, and businessman Kendall Qualls. So why that's also important here is because races where you see a Democrat or a Republican, they are term limited, or they're not seeking another term, or, they're retiring, essentially. Those are the races to watch, because those are the races that both sides of the party, whichever side is the opposite of whoever was holding the office, they try to get the most money, the most campaigning, the most momentum out there to take away those elections. Now, Michigan voters, they're also picking a Senate nominee. Again, back live look at the Capitol Hill right now. Progressive Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and moderate Congresswoman Annie Craig are competing for the Democratic nod to succeed retiring Senator Tina Smith. As I just said, these are the big races to watch. And then you have on the Republican side, former sportscaster Michelle Tafoya is considered the frontrunner against retired Navy SEAL Adam Schwartz and former NBA player Royce White. Okay, we got some sports people getting involved in that race. Now, in Connecticut, Governor Ned Lamont, as we just said, again facing his first primary race. You've also got Hong that is in a race there. Again, this is yet another test on how progressive can Democrats get. We've talked about this for so long now. Francisca Hong, she's a 37-year-old Democratic Socialist state lawmaker who's now the front runner in Wisconsin's Democratic primary for governor. Now, recent polling shows Hong winning 44% of the vote. That is more than double support of endorsed Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. Now, if she wins, Hong would be the first Democratic Socialist governor in a state President Trump won twice, and Wisconsin's first woman governor and first Asian American governor. So lots of firsts there. And again, the big story here is that Hong's campaign is built around a $20 minimum wage, paid leave, and other economic relief measures as she pitches herself as a candidate for, quote, working class power. Okay, there is a pushback to all of this, as you would expect, because Hong has backed away from some of her past controversial positions amid concerns about her electability in November. Now, even Governor Evers has said he believes she would likely lose to Tiffany in the general election. Now, the winner of Tuesday's primary is expected to face Trump-endorsed Republican Congresswoman Tom Tiffany, who faces virtually no opposition for his party's nomination. So again, as we preview tonight's elections and the midterms upcoming, it is going to be a hard one for Democrats. And again, the test put on the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, and we've talked about this so long on Brookland News Live, there are Democrats who are, more center Democrats. They are more progressive Democrats, and then you have further than progressive, and that's on the socialism side of things. And you have Democrats who are self-proclaimed socialists, and this even goes back to the New York City mayor who is now in office, Zohran Mamdani. That again goes back to the question, how far can you go until maybe some of those center Democrats start to pull back a little bit? What is the infighting that is ongoing? And we always point to the Democrats, at least at this point in time, but it's also Republicans. When we talk about getting to the midterms after November, you're going to see some Republican infighting because they are deciding how are they going to campaign to keep the Senate, to keep the House. And that is going to be a big question here because, of course, as we've looked at polling and we've seen things, at least for the House, it's not looking really, really favorable for Republicans. But we do have a long way to go. So things could change, and things are going to change. So big races happening tonight. We're going to keep you updated over on our social media pages as results come in. If there are any major results that we have to watch out for, especially for the Francisca Hall race. Alrighty, we're going to take another quick break right here on Brookland News Live. When we come back, more of the stories making, well, big headlines. You're watching Brookland News Live. Stick with us.
In a world that never stops, Brookland News is always there, bringing you news from Brooklyn.
Now to some news right now in Brooklyn. An increase to your trash pickup could be coming soon.
The nation.
We're going to start first right now with the breaking news and the information that we know.
And the world.
In the meantime, though, we do want to get to the latest on the war in Iran.
Follow Jackson Mitchell and Brooklyn News.
And welcome back into Brooklyn News Live. Time is now 2:30 as we are now in the bottom half of the hour. I'm Jackson Mitchell. Tuesday, August 11th is the time right now, and we are still with you on what is a busy Tuesday. Alrighty, well, we want to take you to this live look that we're getting in right now. This is out of Spain. It's happening right now. A total solar eclipse is expected to happen, well, in just a little bit. Sky watchers across Europe are gearing up for what is a rare celestial event set to happen tomorrow. A total solar eclipse. Oh, we just lost the camera. We'll wait for just a second for it to be back. It's gonna hit Spain tomorrow. Now, the first total solar eclipse seen from mainland since 1905. Wow, it has been quite some time since all of that. Now, the eclipse will happen in the early evening. This is all set to happen just as the sun is setting. It'll make the Spain the only country in the world where the final phase of the eclipse can be seen. Now, totality will last up to 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Wow, it's quite some time for a total solar eclipse. We've experienced some of those right here in Arkansas in its longest point, again, 2 minutes 18 seconds. It's the first of 3 solar eclipses set to cross Spain between now and 2028. Wow, that's a lot. They're going to be experiencing a lot of moments where the sun just goes black and the sun and the moon cross each other. Experts remind viewers, of course, this is, guys, common sense here. Never look directly at the sun. You gotta use those weird glasses that are like totally black and you really can't see anything, but when you look at the sun, you see what you want to see. You see the total solar eclipse. So that is set again to happen in Spain. Alrighty, want to take you right now in Arkansas. This story actually in Jonesboro. Take a look at this. This is a live look at that RDOT camera that we have. And this is a really cool story. Jonesboro serving as the state capital of the day. It's kind of an initiative that Governor Sarah B. Sanders is happening. Jonesboro rolling out the red carpet today for Arkansas's top state officials, including Governor Sarah B. Sanders, which designated Jonesboro as Arkansas's 20th capital for a day, bringing senior state government officials into the community to meet with local counterparts. Now, Sanders highlighted Jonesboro's role as an agricultural and food processing hub, home to companies including Riceland Foods, Frito-Lay, Nestle, and Conagara Foods, Congrate Foods, rather. The Capital 4-Day program aims to highlight communities across Arkansas by inviting state officials to meet with local leaders and explore the area. Now, today's visit has wrapped up. Now, Paragould is next up as the state's 21st Capital 4-Day. That's all expected to happen tomorrow. So pretty big day for the city of Jonesboro. I believe that the event was happening at the Social, which is of course by Malco Theaters, over just off the hilltop, I believe. So it'll be Johnson Avenue, right? Johnson, before it turns into Red Wolf at the curve. So there you go. So that is just into us and happening today in Arkansas. So a big story there. Another big story, this one is Lindsay Clancy. We want to take you to the live look that we have been talking about for several weeks now. I was going to say days, but it has been weeks. Excuse me here. So right now in Plymouth, Massachusetts, Lindsay Clancy, the woman accused of killing her children and then injuring herself. Of course, the prosecution, or I should say the defendant, excuse me, has claimed that her mental health was at a point where she essentially could not control herself. So right now, psychiatric nurse Rebecca Jolada, who treated Clancy starting back in November of 2022, is currently on the stand at Plymouth Superior Court. You see there on your screen. Now, Jolada testified that Clancy was prescribed medications to help manage her mental health and that she encouraged Clancy to give the treatment more time after Clancy said it, quote, wasn't working. And Jolada said Clancy did not report feeling suicidal, but told her she, quote, can't keep going on like this. So let's keep taking a look. Right now, defense attorney Kevin Reddington is cross-examining Jolada, and we will listen in for the next couple of minutes here.
She did not disclose a plan, no intent, and her husband was aware of this as well. He was on the call.
And in fact, in any of the times that you met with or had messages with Lindsay Clancy and she talked about intrusive thoughts or suicidal thoughts. Did she ever articulate that she ever had a plan?
No.
Already,
Or
I
did she
do
ever
not believe
actually
this
have
is
any
Kevin
intent
Reddington
of
who is
completing the
questioning
act?
her. I believe we might be in some
And you're aware
redirect,
that she did
meaning
have
that this is
support
kind of the
in the
second
way
round
of
of
her
questioning that the
husband and a
prosecution
family,
gets when
didn't
they
you?
call a witness.
aware of
Excuse
that.
me. Just wanted to correct that. Let's continue listening again, though.
And again, intrusive thoughts, when a person tells you, a postpartum mom tells you they're having intrusive thoughts in your training experience, in the times that you've treated moms with postpartum depression or anxiety or even psychosis, that's a fairly common complaint, right?
Yes.
And again, depressed and unmotivated, fairly common to hear those from new moms.
Yes.
And in your experience in treating individuals with postpartum psychosis, whether they hear voices or not, did you ever have any concerns based on your contact with Lindsay Clancy that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis?
I did not.
I have nothing further.
Well, it appears as though she was, doesn't it?
Objection.
Hold on. Why don't we do this? Why don't you get over there, Mr. Barrington, if you can, go ahead. Let me ask you a question.
I will try it.
All right. Anything further? All right. Ma'am, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Counsel, could I see you over sidebar?
Already looks like they are going to go into a sidebar. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but they were questioning this nurse, and then Lindsay Clancy's attorney, Kevin Reddington, appeared to say something. Then there was an objection from the prosecution. Not sure if what is happening here has anything to do with what's going on. They could also be asking, because it is 3:36 Eastern time, if now is a good time to wrap up. If their next witness, how long it's going to be. I know that's always been a question when we watched hearings and trials like this, is how long is your next witness going to go? Because some witnesses are only available at a certain period of time, etc. So that could be the question here. Not exactly sure, but again, lawyers just entering a sidebar. What we're gonna do, because I do want to continue listening again when the sidebar concludes, we will sneak in a very quick break, and then when we come back, we'll go back live there over to the courtroom where this is happening, and hopefully by then the sidebar is over. Not exactly sure how long it's gonna take. I've got a live look pulled up for you guys, and I will take you there as soon as it comes back. We're gonna sneak in a really quick commercial break. Stick with us.
And so what I'm going to ask you to do is
Okay, we told you it would take you back to it as soon as it happens. Not exactly sure what's happening, but we're going to listen in here.
to follow tomorrow as well. And then I'm told that we are well on schedule and perhaps somewhat ahead of schedule. So just for purposes, I don't want to jinx us, but that's kind of where we are. So I'm going to excuse you till tomorrow. Remember those instructions. Don't read anything about this case or any similar cases. Don't do any research. Don't talk about anything. Don't take any field trips.
Alrighty, I wanted to listen in for just a moment, but again, as you just heard, looks like they are going to be wrapping for the day. Likely what the conversation had been in that sidebar was, hey, how long is your next witness going to go? Should we just go ahead and wrap for the day? The judge in this case saying that this trial is well ahead of trial. He said he didn't want to jinx us, might want to knock on some wood there. But again, looks like they're going to wrap for the day. You see there, they're standing for the jury. Lindsay Clancy there in her wheelchair, sitting beside Kevin Reddington. Of course, several times during this trial, she has become emotional. And I'm thinking about one specific moment when a 911 call was played that her husband made when all of this happened. Just to kind of bring you guys up to date what exactly had happened here. So Lindsay Clancy, the evidence shows this, used exercise bands to kill her 3 children. Of course, she's not saying she's not guilty of this. She's saying that she committed the crime, but it's essentially saying her mental health was at a level where she couldn't control her own self. And that is what the defense here has been arguing. The prosecution is, of course, arguing the opposite, saying, well, this is on purpose. It looks like some court hearings might keep going on here. I can't quite tell because the people are still there, so they might go into another sidebar just to speak to the judge while the jury's out of the room. That is not uncommon, and it still can happen. Things can happen while the jury is gone. Just no new evidence or anything can be brought, into no hearing essentially can go on, but conversations can occur. So we'll continue to watch that there. But again, back to the conversation that we were just talking about before the camera had adjusted there. So essentially, using exercise bands to kill her 3 children, then she jumped from the 2nd story of their home in Massachusetts. Her husband had went to get takeout, came back, found her, was wondering where the kids were, went into the basement, trying to save the kids, was unable to. And now here we are. Of course, it's now her ex-husband, but that is where we are now. We're now on a trial where they are claiming that her mental health was so bad that she could not control herself. So, big story that we are following right now. Again, that is now out of Plymouth, Michigan, as you see things wrapping up for the day. Okay, so we are watching that, and give me just a moment. Here, we're going to sneak in. I know that break was very, very quick. We are going to sneak in yet another very, very quick break. When we come back, we've got more of those big stories that are making headlines across the nation. Stick with us. You're watching Brookland News Live. We will be right back. And welcome back here into Brookland News Live. We are tracking a feed that is happening right now at Joint Base Andrews. The president set to depart, taking the new Air Force One as he is traveling to Ohio. He's headed to Northeast Ohio. This is for the finale of a nationwide youth sports competition known as the Patriot Games. Trump will be in Geneva, Ohio to attend the finale of the 2026 Patriot Games. It's a sporting event celebrating America's 250th anniversary. Now, the games are hosted at Spire Academy and feature athletes from 14 to 17 years old. It's athletes from all of the 50 states competing for a total of $250,000 in college scholarships. Now, this 3-day event, it all kicked off on Sunday. 120 student athletes competing at events ranging from football, basketball, to track and endurance challenges. Now, the competitors also faced challenges inspired by the presidential fitness test and a military-styled boot camp circuit. So today's final events include tug of war and victory hoops. Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the president, quote, looks forward to attending the Patriot Games in Ohio as we continue to celebrate 250 years of American greatness, end quote. Now, the event is streaming live on the ESPN app with the post-event special set to air Thursday on ABC. So now you are taking a live look in Joint Base Andrews, where you see Marine One, which is the helicopter that the president travels on to get to Joint Base Andrews. He gets off, then gets on to Air Force One, where again he's going to travel to Geneva, Ohio. So we're taking a live look right now as we expect the president to depart from Marine One and board Air Force One. We have a little bit of audio here, not too much. It looks like just plain audio in the distance. Not quite sure if the press is standing nearby or if the president is going to walk to the cameras. He does sometimes speak while he's at Joint Base Andrews, but I'm not quite sure if right now is the time that he is going to do that. We see that, I believe that is the president right there, soon to step out. Looks like he's thanking the pilots of the helicopter, Marine One, and is going to depart and get board Air Force One. Let's watch live here. Alright, he doesn't look like the president is going to come and speak to the press. I wasn't quite sure if he would. We don't ever know. He just kind of walks up to the cameras and starts talking. So again, Joint Base Andrews, the president boarding the new Qatar gifted Air Force One, something we talked about earlier in the show. So I got to be with us the entire hour that we are live with you. And there you go, a little wave to maybe the camera, and he is heading to, again, Geneva, Ohio for the finale of Patriot Games. Again, a kind of like a Olympics, I think you could say, something like that. Not sure if that's a bad thing to say, as he is heading to watch the finale of that all. You see the aides, I see White House Chief of Staff, looks like Caroline Leavitt behind her, which is the White House Press Secretary. See, you start to recognize all of these faces. I think Margot Martin is one of those people as well, once he covered the White House for so long. So again, Trump expected to travel to Geneva, Ohio for all of that. Alrighty, a quick break, more on the other side. Actually, I want to check this. Okay, it looks like the Clemente hearing did officially wrap up. I wasn't sure. When we come back, we've got to look at your forecast as, again, we take a live look in Jonesboro. Stick with us. Brookland News Live returns in a moment. Well, we have got some more reporting to bring you coming from the Washington Journal just in a few moments ago. Again, coming from... Give me one second. Coming in for the Washington Journal, this all goes back to... Well, the reflecting pool drama. You might remember all of this. It's a developing story. So you might remember the renovations done on the reflecting pool. Well, they went wrong. The White House would accuse people of trespassing, essentially damaging the reflecting pool, damaging government property. And well, things just would go south. They would then indict a former Olympian. Then they took back that indictment. The president would say he was upset in the work done by Jeanine Pirro, who is the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. Then we would see video after that remark by President Trump. We would see video of Jeanine Pirro arriving to the White House, appearing to carry like a suitcase of documents, essentially. And well, it has just gone further and further since then, because we are just now learning. This is in from, again, the Washington Journal. Take a look at this. This is all new reporting coming into us from the Washington Journal, which says the White House is asking for the DOJ to reconsider this case. So the Washington Journal reporting, quote, White House officials have asked the Justice Department to consider a new prosecution of a man accused in vandalizing the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. This is according to people familiar with the discussions as President Trump fumes over U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro's decision to drop the case. A new prosecution of the defendant, Olympic canoeist David Hearn, would be highly unusual, especially after Pirro told a judge in surprising detail that the government's decision to indict him on a felony charge was ill-informed. Pirro said a botched renovation, not vandalism, was responsible for the reflecting pool problems. That pretty much just tells you about this entire case. So I want to play this video that we had showed you guys a few weeks ago from the Jeanine Pirro, who is the attorney, in which she says, and what I should say, from President Donald Trump a few weeks ago, where he says he is, well, disappointed in the work of Jeanine Pirro. Take a listen.
About her decision to drop
No,
criminal
Jeanine
charges.
Pirro made a mistake. It leaked from 1922. It opened in 1922. They never solved the leak problem because it was stone. And the cracks with the stone, stone is really not a waterproofing material. We essentially use a very high-grade swimming pool type material, which was my idea. I was very proud of that idea. And by the way, I didn't know the contractor. Everyone said the contractor. I didn't know the contractor. But when it was completed, it was perfect. But then somebody went in and cut it, just like they did the grass. You know, nobody talks about the grass. The grass have helicopter pictures of what they did. And I was disappointed with Jeanine Pirro, really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella, and people get away with things, and it's a disgrace. But we're very proud of Lafayette Park. Now we have a big decision to make. Do we take the pavers that are red, you know, the red brick pavers, and do we change them into a granite?
Yeah, so a big story at the time that the president would publicly say that he was disappointed in someone that his administration appointed to fill the role. So a big story there. Again, Jeanine Pirro was a former Fox News host. She was in the legal world before that. Now she's back in the legal world as the attorney for the District of Columbia, representing the United States. So a big story there. Again, the Washington Journal out with that new reporting. Alrighty, as we start to wrap up the show, first we want to get you to this happening right now at Jordan Base Andrews. President Trump is taking off right now, after boarding Air Force One. This is the new Qatar gifted jet that he's taking. He's headed to Geneva, Ohio, again for the finale of the Patriot Games as we watch him take off live there. Let's keep watching for just a moment here. Again, he's headed to Geneva, Ohio. There you go. You see the new Air Force One and wheels up. I can hear Marine One, but I can't quite hear Air Force One so far in the distance. Alrighty, there you go. That's a look at Joint Base Images right now as the president takes off. Want to get you to your hometown, your weather, a live look right now on Highway 49 and School Street there right here in Brookland. It's 2:57 as we begin to wrap up our full hours long of coverage here on what has been a busy Tuesday. Can't say it enough. Sunny skies, well, they are continuing and the heat is continuing for the next 3 days, including today. The high is 98 degrees. Tonight's low, 77 degrees. So I consider that, I don't know if I consider that hot, but warm. It's definitely warm. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 98, low of 79. And then by Thursday, we've got a high of 98 and a low of 78. So a hot few days ahead of us. As we look way ahead in the week, we could see highs as high as 103 on Sunday. It is going to get really hot, you guys, and the humidity, it gets a little bit better because right now we're averaging about 60%. It's going to go back down to about the 50s, but I mean, 103 degrees is hot no matter humidity high, humidity low. It is extremely warm, so it's extremely hot next few days ahead of us. Live now in Brookland as we wrap up the show right here live on Brookland News Live. That is going to do it for us on this busy Tuesday. I want to appreciate all of you for joining us throughout the last little bit. Got a lot of news to get to. There's always so much going on across the nation. Remember, you want more of this? You can visit brooklandnews.com for all the news you need and more. Then you can follow all of our social media pages there at the bottom of your screen. For the second news breaks, we're on there. The second big news breaks, we're on there bringing you guys updates. Again, for the local side of things, I recommend brooklandnews.com. Then you want to go to our social media. That's where you get local, national. You get all the news as it happens. Then come to Brookland News Live every weekday at 2 p.m. Another reminder that we will not be here tomorrow nor Thursday. We'll be back on Friday, though, with more of this week's top headlines. You're watching Brookland News Live. Again, weekdays, 2 p.m., but not tomorrow or Thursday. I apologize about that. Just have something scheduled. Have a great day, guys, and stay safe.